Most of us have heard about the Underground Railway, the largest anti-slavery movement in North America used by enslaved African Americans to escape to freedom. But where exactly did they end up? The Elgin settlement, now known as Buxton, was founded in 1849 and became home to approximately 2,000 people of African descent by the end of the 19th century. And some of them brought with them patchwork and quilting skills. Today, I have Michelle Robbins, the curator of the Buxton Museum, on the podcast. She's going to tell us all about the settlement and the quilts in their collection. So grab your sewing and a cup of tea, and here's my interview with Michelle Robbins. Welcome, Michelle, to the show. Whereabouts in the world are you coming to us from?
I am coming from North Buxton, Ontario, Canada.
Okay, and for those that don't know, where is North Buxton?
North Buxton is about an hour from the Detroit border. So we're just, on the cusp of Windsor, Ontario, in between Windsor, London area. So we're a small rural community of about 250 or so folks that live here.
Now, I understand by your last name, Robbins, that your ancestors are part of the original group of enslaved people that escaped the U.S.
Yes, they are. So my family landed here in 1851. So I'm a seventh generation descendant of the Buxton settlement here. For those that don't know, Buxton settlement was founded in 1849, and it was a safe haven for many formerly enslaved individuals to come to for freedom. So we've been here since then, and I'm a proud seventh generation descendant. My family still resides here, still farms here. We are generational farmers as well. So very proud of my family, the resilience that they showed, and now we're here.
Well, I think I'm like a lot of Canadians. We did not know that there was such a place until actually not that long ago. And you're not even that far away from me. It's amazing that that history has not been part of our history.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate for many Canadians, many people in our own backyard within, the radius of Chatham-Kent area don't even know that we're here either. And we're, a terminus on the Underground Railroad. So we're one of those lost stops that people came to. And, we have so much rich history here. It's not just Black history, it's Canadian history, and it's history for everyone to share. And, we welcome visitors here to share that history and continue to tell those stories and create those legacies for all those people that came here and our ancestors that came here before us.
I find the beginning of the settlement interesting. The Reverend King came together with many people and many investors. And it wasn't just one person buying it, but it was a whole collective of people investing in the community.
Yes, absolutely. And I think sometimes there's a little bit of a misconception of how, the settlement started, but very like-minded individuals, including Reverend William King, purchased the property here, which is 9,000 acres. So we go from the Dillon all the way to Talbot Trail, so Talbot Road up by the lake. So various individuals assisted Reverend William King in purchasing the land. And then anyone that came here was able to purchase 50 acres of property at $2.50 per acre. And they had 10 years to pay that off at 2% interest. So when we talk about the settlement and the beginnings and, all of the individuals that were abolitionists and helping settlements like this start, very important people in our history books and very important people that were, very like-minded allies to Blacks within the settlement here.
You are just the new curator. I believe you took over from Shannon Prince.
Yes, I did. She is my aunt also. So she was the curator here for 25 years. Very well-knowledged, well-versed, big shoes to fill here. And she created so many forever lasting relationships with people that were just coming to the museum and that would end up sitting around her kitchen table. So she definitely left her mark here. She still is on our board, so she hasn't gone too far, but definitely very proud to fill her shoes.
I hear she's a storyteller. Does she tell stories there?
The best storyteller, I'm telling you. I try to keep up to her, but she's far beyond measure. And she does an amazing school marm. When we have some classes and folks that come here, she'll do a whole school session in costume, in character, everything. So she, is definitely the one that, is the best storyteller, I think, in the community. So, and I think for her, especially because she went to the school. So she's got that connection where, she was a student. So she knew exactly what it was like going to school there.
So, how long beforehand did you know that you were going to be the person that took over this really important museum?
Oh gosh. I worked here as a summer student. I think everybody that lives in Buxton as a teenager has that rite of passage working here at the museum. So I was really lucky to be able to work here for a summer. And, I didn't really, appreciate my history as a young child or a teenager. Like most people do, you don't necessarily know about your family, where you came from, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, especially if it's not taught within the schools. So we were, taught about our history from our families. And I think, after COVID happened and I was in a job and I, was looking for a little something different to do, and the assistant curator role came up here. So I took that on, and then Shannon entrusted me to take on her role when she retired. So it's an amazing opportunity. I love coming to work every day. I love sharing the stories, the history about the people that came here, and the stories that we uncover that aren't always told. So every day is a new day, and every story is a new story, and it's an amazing feeling to be able to carry on that legacy for all of the curators that came before me.
I've seen pictures of the museum. There are a lot of beautiful quilts in the museum. Can you tell us about some of those?
Absolutely. So we have quilts here that are dating back to the 1800s. So when people were coming here, obviously they had to make do with what resources they had within the settlement grounds. So quilting was one of those things that various individuals came together. They would have quilting bees within the community, and they would make these beautiful quilts out of whatever they had readily available. So that meant different fabrics that they would just connect to each other. They would sit around a table and quilt each corner, and a lot of those quilts were also made for fundraisers, for raffles, all of those kinds of things as well. So we have some gorgeous, gorgeous quilts here in the museum. Very old, very delicate, and just amazing artistry that is in them.
I noticed that a number of them either have names or they're signed.
Yes. So that was part of the Busy Bee Club. So there was a club here that was called the Busy Bee Club, and they would do a lot of these quilting bees, and they would form a group that they would sit around, someone's kitchen table or at a church hall, and they would quilt these amazing, amazing quilts, and they would actually hand stitch the names into them as well. So you could purchase, for a quarter or $1.75, your name on each quilt. And that was a fundraiser for your name to be ingrained on that quilt for the end of time. And a lot of people, really admired the women that, and men, because there were men in the quilting bees as well, that were doing a lot of the quilts and making the quilts here. So they're absolutely fantastic. When people come in, and we have Reverend William King's bed here, and we have a lot of those quilts that are on the bed and some hanging up, and they always catch the eye of, oh, that's beautiful. Oh, yeah. So then we show them all the quilts, and just how incredible that they made these quilts is just fantastic.
So, how many quilts do you have in your collection?
We have, I believe, 20 quilts here, various ages. Some were just recently donated to us as well. Labor Day weekend, they used to have a raffle of a quilt, and some people have redonated their quilts back to the museum here. So it's nice to see those ones coming back from various individuals that have won them. I think the last one that we just got on Labor Day weekend, the family brought it in. The mom had passed away who had won it, and she bought her ticket for 75 cents in 1968. So it's fantastic to see, and how they've progressed over time. I think that's amazing as well.
So, as a small museum, how do you take care of your articles and everything at a museum level?
Oh gosh, it's a lot. We have quite a substantial amount of storage, obviously climatized storage as well. So we try to ensure that everything is wrapped, put into place as neatly and as climatized as possible. And then we do display a lot of our articles as well. So we have 3 rooms within the museum here, as well as a schoolhouse, an 1852 log cabin, and a barn. So we do have various items in those buildings as well. So we maintain, as much as we can, all of the items and artifacts, and people still bring us a lot of items as well. So we like to try to find places for everything and keep everything. But, sometimes you run out of a little bit of space, but we try to display as much as we can, especially with new exhibits and things like that as well.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people appreciate how much work is involved just in cataloging and keeping the inventory of everything in the museum.
Oh, absolutely. Because once this museum started in 1967, everything was handwritten, and a lot of pictures weren't necessarily taken of the items that we have here. And digitizing a lot of those items now is a lot of work. We had a summer student who digitized all of our accession records this summer, so that was a great help. But again, a lot of time, effort, scanning, picture taking, measurements. It is very time consuming to make sure everything is exact what it needs to be and how we need it to be here as well.
So, how was the Buxton Museum affected by the pandemic?
Obviously, our visitorship was down because we weren't allowed to have visitors within the site, but we've seen such a beautiful increase of people coming, especially people that had planned trips to come back to the settlement here, come and visit us. And it's been amazing to see, especially after the pandemic. Obviously, people are still a little weary about traveling now, but it's getting better. We've seen quite a few larger groups coming back, a lot of bus tours coming back. And we have what's called the Buxton Homecoming Celebration. Last year, we celebrated our 101st, and we had our big 100th celebration. And the amount of people that came here, because of obviously the pandemic, we weren't able to have our celebration for 2 years. But our first year back was our 100th. So it was amazing. We saw about 8,500 people within, the Buxton area and throughout Chatham, Kent. So it was beautiful to see all of the people come back, hugging, embracing people that hadn't seen each other in probably years. And it was beautiful to see.
So, yourself, as you've come into this role, do you have a background in craft and quilting?
I learned how to sew as a child. My mom actually taught me, and then I learned from my grandma. So it's been generational. So I'm trying to teach my daughter a little bit. I haven't really perfected it, to the point of, making a one gigantic quilt, but I would like to one day. I think it would be amazing. But I do love doing crafting. I love making holiday planters and all those kinds of things as well. So I try to make the planters and things that are outside for the holidays, and trying to do as much as I can here and then at home as well.
So, there's kind of two layers to studying or the history of quilts. There's the history of the making and the people, and then there's the history of the fabrics as well, where they came from. Do you know any of the history of the fabric?
The fabric, well, a lot of the fabric was brought here, sold here within the Buxton settlement, because this was a very self-sufficient and self-sustaining community. And then some of it would come from Chatham area, from various settlements that were surrounding us as well. So a lot of those different fabrics would come from either people's homes as well. So whatever they had available was a lot of what they used and what was readily available for them. So if you see some of the quilts here, some of them have flowers, some of them have plaid, some of them have butterfly. So and they made them to what they wanted them to look like and to be like. And the artistry and the technique that is involved with those is fantastic. So a lot of it just came directly homegrown from here.
You don't have the quilt behind you, but there's a beautiful quilt. I think it's called Buxton Settlers. It has
Yes.
some tulips on it. Can you tell me
Yes.
a bit about that quilt?
Yeah, so that one was to pay homage to the settlers that came here. So it is a beautiful quilt that was made here within the Buxton settlement. And all of the names of the first settlers on the very middle of it. And then surrounding it are, various families and individuals that came here thereafter. So I'm very proud that my seventh generation great grandfather's name is on there that settled here, and many of my other family members and ancestors as well. So it's a beautiful quilt. We do have it hanging right up front in the museum here, right beside Reverend William King's bedroom set. And it's an honor to have it here because then people can actually come in, put on gloves, and try to find their family names if they have a connection here as well. So for a lot of people, it's an emotional experience to see it. It's a beautiful experience for them to see their family name on that quilt as well.
I met a woman, her name was Pamela Week. She's the curator of New England Quilt Museum.
Mhm.
And she talked about finding these signature quilts and then finding the census and connecting the dots. Well, these two were neighbors and this one was the niece of that one. Has anybody done that with yours?
They do sometimes because we do have census records all the way back to 1852 here. As well, we do have a whole book and a map of the settlement. So it actually shows where people lived. So we do have a lot of those individuals that come to see where their family farms were or where their families lived within the settlement, as well as the census or voting records. And they connect them with the names and items that are on the quilts. And then some people will just come and take photos of the quilts because it is their family name as well. So there is a lot of that connection, I think, for many people, especially with, the amount of research and ancestry that is happening nowadays, where people are connecting with each other and connecting with their families as well. So yeah, we do see that quite often.
And that's interesting about the ancestry now. You must have so many more people interested in that homecoming week because
Oh,
they now know they're connected to it.
absolutely. And the amount of people that, just come to the museum here and say, do you have a family tree? And then, they find each other and, maybe one person is, just came into the museum, is looking through the same family tree and they didn't know that they were, related. So we see that so much and so often. I've met family that I didn't know working here as well. So I think like my first summer as the assistant curator, I was here and I had some family come in that I didn't know. I had no idea. And we were going through family trees. And I was like, oh, wait, that's my great grandma. That's your great grandpa. Oh, okay. So, the connections that you meet and the people that you connect with is lovely to see and just so heartwarming because people just want to be connected. And it's a great way for them to be able, to connect with each other.
What could enslaved people that had escaped to Canada expect when they got here? Were they just accepted or were they still pushed into communities? Was life easier?
I think if they came to a settlement like this, then it was, they were accepted and, the fellowship and the community that surrounded them was very welcoming. We have what's called the Buxton Liberty Bell that's outside. This is a replica that we have, but the original is still standing in one of the churches here. So anytime a new family or a new person would come to the settlement, they would ring the bell and that would signify their freedom. So, for, a lot of people that come here that are connected or not connected and they ring that bell and it really shows that community feel. So people would come and welcome, each other to the community. And then they would help them find homes or find land or property or loan them money sometimes to be able to purchase land. So there was that family community feel within this settlement. Quite a bit of opposition in outerlying communities. I won't say that didn't exist, but Reverend William King really wanted this community to be self-sufficient and self-sustaining. So this was an entire Black community in 1852. There was approximately 2,000 Black individuals that lived here. And to be able to purchase land within this settlement, you had to be of color as well. So, there was that feel and that sense of being home and being able to own property and own a home and own a business. I think for a lot of people that came here, I wouldn't say it was easy, but I think living within a settlement such as this, or, the Don settlement, which is in Dresden, somewhere like that as well, I think, having that connection and people that were like you at one point that you could relate to, I think that was important for a lot of individuals that came here as well.
Is there a Harriet Tubman connection in Buxton?
There isn't. I've been searching and someone was here doing research of maybe a month and a half ago and they had asked and I said, we haven't been able to find any connection. I'm sure she maybe went by, entirely possible, but no real connection here. But we, definitely admire Harriet Tubman and everything that she accomplished and the people that she assisted via the Underground Railroad as well.
Now, not everybody stayed after the act of emancipation in the US. A lot of people went back. Did people go back and then come back?
Yeah, I think for here, especially because after the Civil War, we did have people that did go fight in the Civil War from this settlement. And a lot of people that went was because they didn't feel like they had their entire lives or their families with them. Even though they were here and they were free, they still wanted to fight for the freedom of their own people. So many people, went to fight in the Civil War. Some came back, some stayed to help with Reconstruction. So there has definitely been an influx of United States and Canada, vice versa as well. We've seen a lot of people coming back to this settlement and living here and moving here because they want to feel connected and connected back to this community where their family came to. So we've seen it both ways a little bit, but it's just about opportunity, I think, as well, because there's not a lot of workforce here any longer. There's only really two places you can work here, the museum and Verdana, unless you go to a larger city. So you did really see a lot of that as well, people leaving here because there was no work or no means. but now, it's starting to thrive again, which is amazing to see.
So what kind of crops are grown in your area?
Beans, corn, and wheat are mainly, the items that are grown here. I do have a cousin that is down the street. He and his wife have started a farmers and garden market. So they're growing a lot of fresh produce, herbs, spices, a lot of the original types of things that people that originally came here, they're starting to grow a lot of those as well. Collards, peppers, onions, tomatoes, garlic. So it's starting to see, a lot of those smaller community gardens that are popping up here as well, which is amazing. And people can go there and buy seeds, they can go buy plants. So mainly just cash crop here.
Have you ever had a quilt show where you've had all your quilts on display?
We've done some partnerships with various museums. We did something with the ROM. So we did have some quilts on display at the ROM. And we've had people contact us to loan them for various shows and different things like that as well. But not necessarily here, which I think would be amazing to see. We have in the Chatham area, the Quilters Guild, they come and they have a big show here. So some of those people that go to that come here because they've heard that we have some nice, really nice and beautiful quilts. So it's been nice to see people, really coming just, to see that as well. And then they didn't necessarily know about the history here. So it opens a whole nother door for a lot of individuals as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been nice to see that connection with the quilts and the settlement here.
I used to participate in a quilt show that they used to have at Black Creek Pioneer Village. And every day they'd bring out these quilts and hang them. And every night they took them down and then they hung them the next day. Of course, they would come down in the rain, but they always seemed to luck into some really good weather. It's very different to have quilts hanging outside than it is inside.
Oh, absolutely. And it gives a completely different feel because, you're in the fresh air and you're walking and you can, really look at all of them from every angle. And I think sometimes when they're in a museum or hanging up, just you can see one side, you can only see the front, but you want to see the whole, the quilt and the craftsmanship and the artistry that goes into them.
What have they used for batting? Do you know?
Some of it is cotton. Some of it, there is no batting inside of them. We do a couple that have a little bit of fleece in them, some of the newer ones. And some of them don't have any at all, no real backing, or they've used just other like sheets or different things like that as well. So they would really just use a lot of whatever extra fabric they had here to create the backing in them as well.
Now, are the backs of the quilt signed?
Yes, a lot of them are signed. So whoever was part of that. Some of them are signed. Some of them are signed on the front. Some of them have kind of the initials on the back. You can always tell which person made them if depending on their initials. Like ACR was Arlie Robbins, and she made quite a few of them. And then, with the people that made them in the Busy Bee Club, there were various individuals. So they would have their names right in the middle. They were a signature quilt or something like that as well.
So one of the big things that I've discovered in the last couple of years is Canada made all these quilts during the war, World War II, and sent them overseas. I'm not sure if you've heard of Joanna Dermagian, who's researching these. And I'm just wondering whether you have any records of it happening within your community, making quilts to give to the Red Cross for overseas relief.
There was a club here that was called the Eliza Harding Club, and they would make various quilts and different things, and they would actually send them. But we don't have any of those quilts, obviously, here. But there was some documentation about that club that was making quilts and sending over different things to soldiers in the war as well. So there was a connection here. Not a huge connection, but there was a club that was doing that here.
And the Canadian National Exhibition in Toronto used to have a quilt competition. Do you have any records of any of the quilts in your community participating?
We don't. Not that I've seen in my searches.
I'm looking for the archive of those quilt shows and I haven't been able to find it yet.
They're very hard to locate. A lot of those archives are a little, you really have to go down a rabbit hole to find, a lot of information.
My first dive into genealogy, I was lucky. He actually turned out to be a relative of mine, was the local clerk. He had beautiful handwriting and everything was meticulously kept. I just presumed all records were that nicely done. And then I went over a county and they were just blotches and everything. I got spoiled at the beginning. And then, of course, there's fires and floods and
absolutely
records. Did you have any big fire or natural disasters in your area?
We haven't. We've been very lucky, knock on wood, because this whole building is wood. We've been very lucky that we haven't had anything, to damage any of the property or anything here. We had a little bit of a leaky roof over at the cabin, but that's been, fixed. So, but the cabin, obviously, built in 1852, it's, challenging to sometimes make sure that everything is up to standard with that as well. But otherwise, we've been very, very lucky that we haven't had any damage to anything here. So,
Did I read that you're having difficulty with the part that's attached to the Great Lakes, the erosion on that end of your property?
so there is some erosion that is happening over Talbot Trailway. So we don't own the property there or anything like that. It is privately owned, but there is a lot of erosion that is happening within that area. Which was initially part of the settlement, a portion of it, where they had actually shipped lumber and brick across over into Ohio. So there was a tram that they utilized for doing so. So that, is slowly, not existing anymore. And it's sad to see, as a child, we used to go to this little beach down there called Burns Beach, and it was great, but it doesn't exist anymore because it's all been, eroded over. And yeah, you hate to see things like that happen, but obviously there's nothing that you can do. Nature runs its course, I guess, per se, and yeah, it's hard to manage that. And for the folks, especially that live there now within that area, I'm sure it's a challenge for a lot of people.
So if a person wanted to come visit the museum and see the quilts on display, when's the best time of year for that?
Well, summer. Spring and summer is our kind of peak season. Because we have some outdoor buildings and in the snow, it's not as enjoyable for some people if they don't like the cold weather because we do go outside. And there is no heat in two of the buildings outdoors. So you have to dress extra warm. But definitely spring, summer, fall are, the best times to come. If you want to visit us, you can come here. We are open Monday to Friday right now from 1 till 4:30. And then in the summer, we are open Sunday through Tuesday. We're closed Mondays. And we open in the summer, we open right at 10:30 and we close at 4:30. So we're open for the full day for anybody to come and visit. And we always encourage people, if you want to come visit, if you want to book a tour, or if there's something you want to research, please reach out to us and we can ensure that we, get all the information out for you if there's something specific you're looking for, especially with the quilts as well, because some of them are stored away. So we can always pull those out, provide you gloves to wear as well, because you don't want the oil from your fingers to get on the quilts. And, we always welcome anyone to come here. We're happy to have people come and visit us because we want to share our history and the beautiful quilts that we have here with everyone.
So do your quilts often travel?
They do. Yep. If anyone likes to borrow or wants to borrow them, we, certainly can loan them out. Some of them, go across Ontario, and we're happy to loan them out wherever we see fit, as long as, they are in good condition, that, they won't have anything damaged or anything like that as well.
And the quilters today, you still have quilters in your community?
There's a few, not as many as there used to be. It's kind of died off a little bit, but I would love to see it come back. I think it would be amazing, to see some people, start it back up again. If I can, practice a little bit more, maybe I'll start one. Get it going and see what we can come up with. Who knows what it'll look like, but we'll at least make a solid effort.
Well, thank you, Michelle, for your time and sharing the stories. It's been lovely speaking to you, and I am really hoping that I can get down to see you this year.
Yes, definitely come and visit. And, we do have virtual tours on our website as well. So you can check that out too.
So if people wanted to contact you, how did they get a hold of you?
You can reach out to us through any of our social media, Facebook, Instagram, our website, buxtonmuseum.com. We have an area there where you can send us a message, or feel free to email me, buxtonhistoricalmuseum@gmail.com, or give us a call, 519-352-4799.
Well, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Michelle Robbins. The Buxton Museum is definitely going to be on one of my places to visit in 2025. If you want to know more about the Buxton Museum and the quilts in their collection, I will leave links to their website and social media in the video notes below. Next time you're in your sewing room, be sure to have Karen's Quilt Circle playing in the background. I have interviewed so many interesting people on this show. Let one inspire you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.